Noon. I'm Danny from CNU, and my question is for Doc Tormes. So, if you're passing by and you don't even know about Doña Malta, you don't honk while you face. Will you face the consequences, or does Doña Malta's influence only encompasses the San Fernando community? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Actually, these are just the belief system for the people in San Fernando, and not necessarily that people na dili mo beep nga to or mo honk nga to is makagain sila or maka-encounter sila accident. What I mean with what I've said earlier is that their act of honking is also as a sign of respect towards Doña Malta and also the acknowledgement of her existence and how she is still alive until right now for the people in San Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's what we call pahinungod sa taglugar. No? We have another question from at the back, and then we will cater your questions, sir, after.
Hello, good morning. I'm Christoph. My question is for Miss Cabileta, tama, no? Cabileta. Okay. I'm not trying to be a myth police, no? Okay, we all know mythology is passed on orally, and we can play around it anytime we want. I'm just curious with the Tres Marias Monggot and other in the folklore literature, they are considered as deities, or in our term is Dewata. Was it a conscious choice to use Encanto as a term to call our Tres Marias? And what's your lens that you use in there? Thanks.
Yes, it is a conscious choice to call them Encanto, mainly because it is also what Damiana Eugenio refers to. Eugenio refers to them as well. And also there is also a term for them like the fairy, diba? And then Dr. Alboro also refers the Encantada and Encanto as a fairy. So there's this connection between these terms. So I hope I answered your question.
But in your personal choice, or was it like, did you also consider that they are like gods, or goddesses?
It's the materials I used is Eugenio, so
Yeah.
that author really labeled it as
Okay.
Encanto.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I think that's all.
All right, thank you so much, Sir Christoph and Miss Glory, for that answer. I think the highlight there was that the researcher focused on the material from Eugenio's narrative. All right, we have another question here.
Hello, good afternoon, Doctor. My question is for Dr. Tormes. I am Ruben Nuevo from Leyte. And also, may mga nakikita din kami na kagaya kay Doña Malta. Sa amin, tinatawag namin siya si Maria Anabe sa Leyte. Ganoon din na may mga gold na mga napapahiram. Tapos hindi sinauli, hindi na nagpapahiram. Pero ang tanong ko, isa kasi sa mga komperensya namin sa CNU, o noon sa CNU, is hinanapan ako ni Dr. Hoxon ng vertical test at horizontal test kapag gumagawa ng isang oral, mga pagkalap ng mga hindi na ilathalang puklor. Gusto ko lang magtanong kung ginawa mo rin ba ito at kung paano mo ito ginawa ang vertical test at horizontal test. Thank you.
Hello. For the study, the objective of the study, as of now, is purely for the collection of these oratures. But afterwards, the Doña Malta Mangod is only one of the tales that I've collected. I've collected at least 10 tales from San Fernando. But later, I am planning to actually do that as well, the testing.
Hello, my name is Sam again, a literature student here in San Carlos. My question is for Dr. Turmis. By nature, oral narratives, they can depend from person to person, like little details, little minute things. In your effort to document, what is your process of picking and choosing which of these little details, or do you do an all-encompassing thing of like, and one case this person said that and another this person said that. So I want to know, do you pick and choose which details that differ?
What I did is I used Creswell's thematic analysis. When I interviewed, the people that I've interviewed, those are the people, point sila from the LGU that they have those knowledge. And afterwards, I interviewed at least 15 people until I reached data saturation. And afterwards, I transcribed the data, and after transcribing the data, I categorized the similarities and what they have said.
Did you notice any like stark differences from each person and person, or do they all generally go the same way?
There are some differences, like for example, some of the informants that I've had, they told me that until now, Doña Malta is still alive, there are na siya yung mga anak nga to, but only a few informants said that. So what I did is I only compiled and transcribed stories which for most of the informants na ay similarities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm coming from two disciplines. I am a librarian, and we are teaching the students that there are two kinds of information resources, fiction and non-fiction. Now, it seems to me that when we are teaching about these spiritual beings, we are telling the students that they are really participants in this world. In other words, they are not anymore in the world of fantasies. So that's why, if that is the way this lesson will be taught to our students, especially in Catholic schools, my question to all of you then, are you obliged to make a cautionary statement before you teach this to the students? Otherwise, they will be confused because our faith, I'm coming again, I am a priest, and I have to be a guardian of our Catholic doctrines. Then, is it necessary to give a caution to them that this is just a fantasy? Because if it's not just a fantasy, then it will run counters to our belief as Catholics that the spiritual beings in this world are fallen angels. That's our teaching. So how are we going to help the students who will be confused later on? These encantos are participants in this world. And then in our faith, it is taught that they are actually members of the rebellious angels. So how are we going to reconcile this so that we will not create confusion among the minds
Thank you, Father.
of our students?
Thank you, Father Franlo, for that very important question and especially highlighting the fact that this is a Catholic institution. Thank you very much. As an educator, it's very important that we know the parameters, okay? And we lay this out in our classrooms because we encourage critical thinking. And part of encouraging critical thinking is to think deeply about received knowledge and how society has evolved in thinking about certain things that have seemed to be entrenched. So say, just as an example, because we can talk about this the whole day and I would love, and I think the rest will agree with me. For instance, let's just put a concrete example on women in how do you call this, in history. They've always been participants, but they have not been seen as participants until after the feminist movement came to pass. And so when this happened, the supremacy of men and their, how do you call this, superiority was sort of put into perspective, and there's a balance between these two. And so people learn to rethink or evaluate the situation and such. So, these are very important questions because superstition, tradition, folklore, and all these are part of our legacy as Filipinos. I'm sure you know this growing up as well as I do. And this is a very interesting area for discussion in the classroom. And so we will talk about how Catholic faith meets with indigenous faith. We can talk about how indigenous people looked at the world and how when the Spaniards arrived, this entire worldview that is very Filipino, animistic, was eclipsed and virtually erased because they were burned, obliterated by the Inquisition-like forces, etc., etc. And so, students will be able to think for themselves. And a Catholic institution like ours, we are witnesses to the word and we think, like we encourage them to think because if we are so tight-fisted and say, this is what you have to believe in, I don't think the Lord has ever wanted that. So the discussion, and then we bring it home, like how, this is also like an everyday battle between good and evil, between whatever forces there are. But let's keep to the vision of critical thinking because we cannot live in the dark ages. We always think of, like what we learned and the values of, our Catholic faith, the values of our indigenous faith, and, the values of free thinking. I give the mic to the others.
I also believe that when we teach these things, it doesn't mean that they should believe on it, but rather the values on what these things will be showered upon the students, like compassion, respect. Kay Panlitan, if they will go to that place and they know the story of that place, it doesn't mean that they don't believe on it, they can just tamper it. But because they have an awareness of because they're aware of the story of that place, they know how to navigate themselves and to connect with people in that place. So yeah, that's my answer for that.
I'd like to add a little bit more. So, towards the end of my paper, I wrote the idea that this is what these legends do is they enrich the Cebuano reader's experience with their environment because oftentimes, Manggod, urban na baya kayo ang Cebu. A lot of us live here in the city already. And when we go to the environment, that's exactly what the stories are trying to advocate for, to not just see them as, wala pa na urbanized, that's untouched. But the thing is, it's not for us to say nga kanang naagi nagpuyo dito nga ingon ana bitaw, but it's just to see value in places that have not yet been touched by human beings and not to ascribe it with human meanings. So what I wrote in the end of my paper is that these legends enrich the Cebuano reader's experience with the environment because it also shows the society's fears and their desires intertwined with nature. And so, in the end of it, when the Cebuano reader reads these legends and then looks at their environment and becomes more aware, there is filled with stories. It's not just empty or untouched. The legends then become an archive of memory, which is exactly what this session is about memory. So, in cultural memory.
Father, and finally, I'm glad you also, I almost forgot this, di ba? In the Catholic faith, we are stewards, right? Naagid tayo stewardship, stewards of nature. And yes, we can highlight that because this is an environmental conference, and that's why we look at that. Sometimes, Manggod, these indigenous beliefs, they have the power to preserve nature, kay di sila hilabtan. And that's the value also, because as stewards, we can help in that conservation, preservation move. Thank you.
To be honest, I see the Filipino identity uh, as a puzzle. And a part of who we are is also our orators. So from what Dr. Hope said, coming from these stories, it also advocates one thing, and that is being stewards of nature. So I think siguro what is important lang is for us to equally acknowledge the presence of these orators because this is a part of our identity as Filipinos, and I fear Banggo that maybe in the future mawala ni siya. So conferences like this are actually great ways in order to make the stories alive and burning. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to our presenters. I think the overarching idea here is that we help our readers navigate their understanding of our folk narratives while also stemming from their beliefs, no, as Catholics or in other beliefs. Okay.